Good evening and welcome to a conversation with John Conenna. Tonight, we are proud and honored to have on George Nottoli from the original Nottoli and Son here on West Belmont Avenue in Chicago, Illinois. The family of the Nottolis has been in business for over 76 years, since the start date of 1947. And tonight, not only is we have the owner of the famous deli that is on Belmont Avenue, but also a good friend. George, welcome to the podcast. And what's going on, young man?
Thank you for having me, John. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah,
I love your podcast. It's always very interesting. So I hope I could live up to the people who've come before me on your podcast.
Oh, I think we're gonna, George. This is great because a place that's only basically 2.5 blocks west of me here on Belmont Avenue. It's something, and of course, the histories between the two families. But
yeah, we've been around a long time, John.
A long time.
You know what that means?
Yeah,
we're old now too.
Yeah, right. I always have this famous saying, George. Now we're in the last quarter of this thing. But anyway, I'm sure you know a lot. There's this famous picture that I always had, and I looked at, and I saw it in the store. I used it even to do a write-up on you almost 12 years ago. It's your grandfather, George, with all the sausages hanging, 1947. When do you get the passion to say, I'm going to continue the legacy of the third generation? When does it really start for you?
When my father says, come on, get up, we're going to work.
Sounds familiar.
You know, I grew up here. I remember when my dad, the original store that we were at, which was on Chicago and Hamlin, my dad sold that in 1967 to a guy, and hopefully we could eliminate some confusion here.
Yes.
My dad sold it in 1967. His father had just died, and he didn't know what he wanted to do. He decided to sell, and he sold to a gentleman named Peter Conchaldi, who then kept the name and ran the business there. My father went to work down on Randolph Street Market. His uncle was there and a lot of other people that he knew. So he was just wholesaling sausage down on the market. And then he came here in 1971. He was just going to open up in the back and just continue to wholesale sausage. In the front of the store was another guy who was on Chicago Avenue, Russell Vesuvio.
Right.
Vesuvio Macaroni. And Vesuvio came in front and opened up a deli, and my dad was in the back. After about a year or so, Russ wasn't making a go of it, so he pulled out, and the front was just empty. So after about a year and a half, my dad said to my mom, what do you think? Should we, do something with the front? So he threw a few cases of tomatoes out here, a little bit of lunch meat, a couple slicers. And that's how it all started again, like in probably the retail shop reopened here in probably 73. But I remember coming here in 71 when my dad bought it. I was 10. And I remember walking in here, and it had been like a Jewish deli and bar.
Oh, wow.
And I remember it had been closed for about 3 or 4 years. And walking through here as a 10-year-old kid, it just seemed so cold. And I remember there was a kitchen, and it had all these cast iron kitchen equipment, and there was cobwebs all over. And then my dad took me in the back, and we were going to bust up the floor.
Right.
He wanted to tile that. There was some tile on the walls, and he gave me a chisel and said, start knocking this tile off.
Wow.
So that's when it started. And then, I always just came to work, and you grow up in it, and that's what you know how to do.
You know what was great about it again, because my dad, who knew your dad, Anthony, and of course your mom, Loretta, said, I'll never forget this. I was about 10 or 11 years old at the time, which puts me in the 71. He came home and told my mom, Nottoli from Chicago and Hamlin moved to Belmont Avenue again. And
Oh
my
yeah.
mom was like, wow, they're back over there. So I remember this when your father and mom were just opening, because my dad goes, God, it's so strange, because my dad had a small income tax and travel office next to the original Nottoli that, of course, Grandpa George had. So
Yeah.
you basically, the timeline between me and you is basically almost the same, because again, we both went to college at the same time, and then when we got out of college, now we're back, with our parents. When do you really start getting it into it, where now George, meaning you, George Nottoli, is now getting into it with your dad and starting to see where you're making the change?
Right. Well, I always worked here every summer, every vacation, time off school. I was here summers through college. Whenever I would come in, I worked, and I didn't go to college to be an accountant or a lawyer or a doctor. And when I got done with college, my dad needed my help. He needed my help, and I wanted to help him. And I didn't have a path. I didn't have a career path.
Right.
And we don't think about your future that much. At least I didn't. It just, you go day to day, and I'm working. I'm helping my dad. My mom is here. So after, a few years of doing this, and I'm taking on more responsibility, and my dad was getting older, because my dad had me just like I had my son when I was 42. My dad had me when he was 40. So when I'm 22, he's about 62.
Right.
And so I was like, Dad, they never took vacations. They never went anywhere, took time off. And I'm like, why don't you take advantage of this? I'm here. And I was like, it seems like my battery's going low. I said, it seems like after about 3 or 4 years, I'm like, I think this is what I'm going to do.
Right.
I'm running it. I know everything. I've grown up with this. Why don't you take some time for yourself? So they went down to Florida for 2 weeks. And then the next year they went for 2 months. And then the next year they went down there and bought a condo. So it just kind of happened naturally, where it was like, well, I'm here. I'm learning more of the business all the time. And there's a lot to know, because I learned from the ground up.
Sure.
I knew what I was doing here, and it's a good business. It's time consuming. You have to be here a lot, but it's a good business, and it's our name. It's our family. So I decided this is, I think what I'm going to do, and it allowed my dad. Then they, retired in 1989. I officially took over the business.
Did you see the potential when you came out of college in that 84 year, that you said, I could do something with this?
Not at the time.
Yeah.
Not at the time, but as I saw things start to change, as I got a little more interested, I thought, I remember telling my dad, I think we got to do something. I think we should maybe sell sandwiches. And he was like, oh no, that's a pain in the ass. You don't want to mess with that.
Right.
But I think we got to do something. I just think we should. You sell these other sandwich places. So I decided, I said, you know what, I think we're going to do it. And, at first, nobody knew we made sandwiches. We'd keep track and be like, hey, we sold 11 today. We sold 13. So that started taking off and doing well. And so, like, in the back, we had some storage. And I figured, you know what? Let me put in a kitchen, because we didn't have a kitchen. We just had a little house stove.
Right.
We made just like 2 salads. So I started making more salads, and then I put in the kitchen. And nowadays, it seems like a lot of both parents work, so people don't have time to cook like they used to. So I'm like, well, let's start doing some cooking. So I put in the kitchen, and I had a wall along my east wall here. It used to be just a wall of pasta.
Yes, I remember.
And another wall of tomatoes and olive oil. and that stuff wasn't going as much as it used to. So I took out the wall of pasta and I put in a wall of freezers and just started making everything. We got pizzas, pizza bread, frozen dinners, catering pans, meatballs, sauces, pastas, frozen pastas. So, and that has done better and better. And, that's really, I think that's what's kept us current and kept us going.
Yeah.
I think if we would have stayed just a grocery store, I don't know. I don't know if we would have, survived. So I am glad that I did see a couple of trends and try and go with it. And
right.
that's
And I've always told people, because of course, frequenting your store in lunchtime hours and even buying sausage there for the weekends for my family, you were always reinventing that place. I never walked into that place and I could say, oh God, we're in the same old Nottoli. We're in the same old Nottoli. We weren't in the same old Nottoli. You kept reinventing. We got a little bit ahead today, me and you. You have to understand that this Nottoli product, which of course started as a sausage, and we're going to get back to where the store is now. This Nottoli sausage, let's face it, here in Chicago is famous. You could go anywhere. I don't care what anybody says. Every time I go someplace, is that Nottoli or is that Greco? Is that Nottoli or is that Greco? So who starts this Nottoli sausage, this secret, we say in Italian, this sapore of this taste of this great sausage? Was it Grandpa's recipe? Just to go back to the sausage.
Yeah. It was my grandfather's, recipe. His brother also owned Luca Packing, which was down on the market. They were a big packing house, and they made sausage, and they made a lot of it. They made capicola, bilordo, and all that. So they had the recipe. They were from Lucca, Italy, and they came here, and that's what they did. My grandfather started out as a peddler. He'd go down because his brother came before he did.
Right.
So my grandfather had a little route, and he'd go by his brother and pick up some sausage, a couple salami, a few bricks of cheese, and go out and sell it to other little taverns and little grocery stores. And then I guess they borrowed $3,000 from my mother's mother to open up the first store.
Which was Mrs. Pacini, right? Was that Mrs. Pacini?
Mrs. Pacini, yeah.
Yes. I mean, incredible. I'm not looking for to hear to tell you tell me what the recipe is, but has the recipe between Grandpa George to your dad Anthony to you, has there been a little bit of alteration with it, or can you
really? Not really. I mean, it's pretty simple: salt, pepper, and fennel.
Yeah,
with just the right amount of it. And I think the key for us is the meat. We use a good quality meat, and we've used from the same company for the whole time we've been in business.
I have to tell you something.
The same type of meat. And so you use good meat, and we trim it. We don't just throw it up there and grind it through whatever's in there. We take the time, we trim it, use a good cut of meat, the right amount of spice. You make it with love, it's going to taste good.
It's going to taste good. You put the passion into it. I have to ask you, all the sausage that you make is from the store here at 7652 West Belmont. It's made there. And how many times a week are you making this sausage?
We make it every day that we're open.
Right.
So right now we're open Wednesday through Saturday. We come in and we make it on Tuesday as well, so that we're ready for Wednesday morning. So we make it Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And if we need to, we'll make some on Saturday.
This might be kind of a goofy question to ask you, but 1947, of course, we don't have the amount of people that are eating out now, like you just said, to now. Of course, I still remember the original sign. And that original sign read, suppliers to pizzerias and drive-ins.
Yeah.
And manufacturers of sausages. I still remember that original sign when I was going.
In my garage.
You still have it?
I got to hang it in my garage.
Oh, that was the greatest sign. I remember going to
I
hold.
took the panel out because the sign was that big heavy thing on the roof, and it was just causing leaking problems and stuff like that. So we took the sign down because also the city wanted us to pay a fee because it hung over at the city property.
I've had that same problem, right? Yeah.
We took that down, but the plastic inserts, and I remember I had to repaint by hand one time because it was really getting faded. So we bought some sign paint, and I remember one summer I just kind of had to repaint everything.
Repaint everything.
But it's hanging up in my garage.
I remember manufacturers of sausage. That's what that sign said. George, from let's say your era, we'll say your era is 1984. Let's keep it there, like there. To now, are you pounding out more sausage, meaning making more sausage now than in the early 80s?
I don't think so. I think we were selling more sausage back then.
Okay.
I think more people, I don't know, picnics. I don't know if people picnic as much, or, we sell a good amount of it still, but I don't know. I don't know if people are watching it more and staying away from sausage more. But I wouldn't say we're cranking out more than we used to.
And you make, okay, like you make a mild, you make a hot, I noticed. You even made one with parsley, which I loved. One.
Yeah, I started making, because, all of a sudden we used to sell mild with fennel, hot, and mild with garlic, which is the Northern Italian style with fresh garlic. But then it's another thing where it's like, okay, trends. Everybody wants a flavor here and a flavor here, and everyone's got specialty flavors. So I thought, well, let me branch out. So I started doing the extra hot because people like really spicy stuff.
Yeah.
Then I did the cheese and parsley with garlic. Then I did a green pepper and cheese. Now I do a sun-dried tomato as well.
Wow.
I started doing a chicken sausage because people maybe want to stay away from pork. So you give them an alternative, and I got mild and spicy chicken sausage. So I've tried to give people different options as well.
And of course, acclimate to our society nowadays, like you said, with everything that's going on.
Like the microbreweries, everybody wants a different flavor.
Right.
There used to be Budweiser, Pabst, and Schlitz,
Yeah, exactly. So, back in Grandpa's day, and even your dad, Anthony, there was basically a mild and a hot, right? Basically, was there, or just really a regular?
And they had the garlic because they were Northern Italian.
Yeah.
So they made that Northern Italian style with the fresh garlic and the noce moscato, the allspice.
Allspice, yeah, yes. And that reminds me of like Lucchese, Lucca, that region, exactly. Knowing this, that by the mid 60s already, Grandpa's sausage, like I said, was famous. It was known. You could go anywhere if you were Calabrese, Bade, Sicilian, up north. This sausage was well known. So when you took this over, again, you want to keep this going. It's not only the name and everything else, but what you did after the year 2000. And I think there you are again.
My battery's getting low. What happens if we run out of battery?
Yeah, I know. Well, yeah, we gotta get this all in here. I hope you got enough battery there. But what after 2000, you really, I want to say from 2000 to 2006, you really start to see the change in your place. And what's amazing about it is, with everything that's around us, the big conglomerate, the grocery store and everything, you have lasted the test of time.
A lot of small places have closed up.
Have gone. George, again, when you talk to people now, they'll say, hey, John, have you ever tried George's pot roast on Wednesday? Or, hey, John, have you tried his veal parm sandwich? Or, John. And I go, well, I go there for the sausage on Saturday and I'll get a sandwich, But people are talking about your other items more now than the staple.
Oh, definitely.
What made you really now know that you went from 11? If you told me that back when you first started it was 11 sandwiches, do you know basically how many sandwiches on a day you're making?
Yeah, I keep track of it.
Is it a good amount?
It's a good amount.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Not as good as it could be. It can always be better, but it's a good amount.
Right. And what you've done too, which I saw with you, not only the sandwiches, not only the service, what you did during COVID was fantastic when you redesigned the front of your place,
Yeah,
knowing that people couldn't go up and come inside your place as they did, as easy as they did. And with
right,
that drop off and window service that you had, and of
right.
course your staff, again, you're always changing. The sandwich part, was it entirely your idea? Was it to the point where like, I got to do this now?
Oh yeah, it was definitely my idea because my dad was against it, and I said I think we got to do it, and so I said I'm going to try it. So we did that, and then it just snowballed. And then once he saw that that was a good idea, then he's like, oh, maybe the kid does know what he's doing. And I branched out into the other stuff, and like I said, that's what's kept us going, and we continue to get new customers
Yes.
all the time. I mean, there were 4 different people today who came in and said, "Oh, this is my first time here. Oh my God, this is great!" Because it's that small deli kind of family feel that you don't find that much anymore because it's tougher and tougher to do.
To do.
But we're just lucky we have a good crew, and we have a good product, which I know if people you can sell somebody something once, but to get them to come back,
Is
and
exactly,
I
George.
know if they try our stuff, they will be back.
I got to tell. I want to kind of just tell everybody what's going on here midway through our podcast. We are talking to the owner George Nottoli today of the original Nottoli and Son, located at 7652 West Belmont Avenue. The family has had the deli between the old Italian neighborhood, Chicago and Hamlin, and now 7652 West Belmont for 76 years. 76 years in business, consistent, 3 generations. And we're talking to the owner here, George Nottoli. And again, this is not to be confused. This is the original Nottoli on Belmont Avenue.
The one and only.
The one and only, that we got to keep pounding that out, George.
Except no imitation. Like a Channel 26 commercial.
You don't want to get this man going because
One stop food and beverage.
you don't want to get this man going because I'm going to go into the latter part of this. But I have to tell you, I really mean this. I wanted to always do this podcast with you, but what you've done to keep this going, I mean, even myself sometimes, we have kept our family traditions alive. I mean, I'm sure there are days we've wanted to throw in the towel, but George, I have to tell you, some of the things you did and some of the things you eliminated to make it. And again, I have to compliment your staff. I mean, for so many years, I wish I could mention all their names, but they are so consistent and so considerate and so on top of it. They've done a tremendous job. And
very lucky with that.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine. But again, George, like you said, this is not a deli of the area. Like you said, I'm sure you're getting people from Northbrook. You're getting people from the West and that. And I am the witness. If anybody's your goodwill ambassador, just if you come down Belmont Avenue, everyone, there is a line out here sometimes on Friday and Saturday. I'm not going to use the word sometimes. It could be any day of the week. It could be raining. It could be snowing. And what amazed me the most, George, during that COVID era, you guys were just phenomenal. Are you always constantly thinking of new ideas with your food products? Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, with everything. I mean, I wake up at 4 in the morning, and I'm like, oh, I think if we put this over here and move this, I am constantly moving things and trying to change things and make things as efficient as possible. And I would change something, and Betty very well.
Oh God, one of the greater workers of your era, sir.
And I'd always change something and say, Betty, I think I'm done. I think this is it. She's like, oh my God, how many times have I heard that? Because I'm always just tweaking and moving this, and I wake up, I wake up thinking of things, but it's like, and then I joke with a couple people that I'm gonna get this place finally one day. I'm gonna have it exactly how I want it, all organized, and then I'm gonna drop dead.
Yeah. Oh God, no. We need you around. No, we need you around.
I'll be like, it's exactly how I want it.
But again, that meant a lot what you just said about, of course, your staff, and we don't want to forget some people, of course, without mentioning is I know Maddie and Kathy and everybody. We can mention so many people. But I have to tell you, this is what here. I mean, we are basically the same age, and I have to tell you, for somebody to be
You're older.
yeah, I'm
You're
older.
older.
All right, I think it's that receding hairline. But I have to tell you, yeah.
Mine resud.
Yeah. No, but I have to tell you, for somebody, and that's how I mean, for somebody to think, hey, 4:30 in the morning, what can I do next? Again, like I said earlier in this podcast, it's not. I don't walk into the same store all the time. I'll walk in sometimes and you're not there, and I'll say, when did he do this? When did he do that? So I mean, again, you took this chance to reinvent this place. And if I'm looking at this place from 2000 to 2023, I think just in 23 years, you invented that place about 4 times.
I've changed a lot of, I've tried to change a lot of stuff, but still keep the feel.
Right.
I don't want to tear out the walls and make it generic. And I wanted to have we still got the old paneling. We still got old metallic wallpaper, on the wall, the old ceiling, but you just do stuff around it, and the place keeps its atmosphere and its feel, but you update and you just kind of move things, change things, and just try and add. I love that part of it.
Oh, for sure. And George, behind you,
walk around with the pad of paper and a pen and go, oh, maybe I should do this, and I try and make everything as visual, because I think people eat food with their eyes before they actually purchase it. You look at it. If it looks appetizing, if it doesn't look appetizing,
right? No, exactly. And just behind you,
to look a certain way. I want things to look full. And
yes.
Thankfully we're busy, so everything is always fresh, because we always, are rotating it. It's moving. So
sure. And just looking behind you, the Nottoli in the background, it just reminds me of that era with of course, the red, white, and the green. I just want to touch on a couple people, and then I want to just kind of say something else to you. But your mom was special to me. Your dad reminded me so much of my dad. Of course, get up, go to work. Anthony, but Loretta was so special. George, I got to tell you from my heart, I miss her. When I would come in there on Saturdays, and she was at that cash register.
Oh,
yeah. An amazing woman. And an amazing woman, meaning I don't care if you were Joe Sanders, who lived in River Grove, or if you were Willie Nelson living in Bellwood. She treated everyone with the same respect and the heart.
Yeah, she did.
Can you elaborate on Anthony and Loretta and what they meant to you?
Oh my gosh. That's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah.
Just wonderful people, generous, loving, hardworking people. Both of them would just do anything for us kids.
Yeah.
And my dad was just a hardworking guy, and sometimes we butted heads. When you're younger, you butted heads but.
And now we miss those button heads. We miss it.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. But what a guy, and he gave me a great work ethic, which I think is lacking with some people that you see nowadays.
Oh, for sure.
He instilled a really good work ethic, and I thank him for that, because if I didn't have as good a work ethic as I have, we might not still be here. It might not be what it is. And but just nothing but good stuff. My mom just passed away.
Yes.
It'll be a year at the end of this month.
Yeah.
And not a day goes by that I miss both of them tremendously.
I'm sure you open up that store when you're there, whatever time you get there, and you think they're going to be there with you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I remember when my dad first passed away, and the first time I walked in here afterwards, it was just like yeah, here I am, Dad. It's never going to be the same. Because, so many times I'd be like, oh, I just want to call him and tell him so and so came in today.
Right.
Or I just did this, or let him know what I did next. Like
Sure.
when I did front windows during COVID, and I redid the whole storefront and put the pickup window in.
It was
I told
fantastic.
Mom what I was doing, and I said, "Are you up for going for a ride?" She said, "Yeah." So I brought her over here. We looked around, and she looked at that. Her life was spent here. They put a
Oh,
lot of, so they were both very happy that I did well, and the business did well, and my mom just loved being here. She loved to talk
oh,
to me. My
for
dad was not like, he'd hide in the back. If he saw somebody come in, he'd go run to the back. But my mom, she talked to anybody.
No, she was, like I said, Loretta had that same demeanor for everyone. She loved people. She could talk
Yep.
to anyone. It was fantastic. I want to just touch a little bit before we close this off. You are known as the Windy City Wonder. When you were, I think that was your
Club
rugby
circle.
days. And please, ladies and gentlemen, when I met George, I was like, who's George Nottoli? I thought he was this little 5'9" Italian guy like me. I walk in there one day, I'm like, holy cow. This is George, was actually a rugby player. I think it's a little film called The Windy City Wonder that you can still catch, I think,
It's
on a
Amazon
YouTube.
Prime.
Yeah, Amazon Prime.
Amazon Prime.
And of course, you, alias, are known as, of course, Vito Two Fingers Fontaine. You were actually a professional wrestler too by doing Nottoli rugby and all this.
My father loved me for it.
Yeah. And you can catch a lot of this stuff on YouTube, George. I mean, that was also kind of how you did it. But again, I could talk to you about this. This was your drive. This was your passion. I mean, the store, not only the store, a great rugby player. And of course, George and I have something in common. We were both hockey players. He played at Fenwick. I played at Holy Cross.
Both goalies.
Both goalies. Yeah, no wonder we're nuts. No wonder we lost our hair.
You gotta be.
I have to tell you, George, in closing, I just want to say this to you. And I always have I can always read it off the thing, but I do want to say this to you. George Nottoli, the original, Loretta, your family, your sisters, and of course, mom and dad. I know we were growing up in a society, me and you, where a compliment was like, throwing a manhole cover at you from our parents. But I have to tell you, I know, because I want you to know this from the bottom of my heart. I talked to your mom many a times, and I used to say to her, unbelievable what George has done. She always would say to me, and I'm going to close it off tonight like this. She says, John, we are so proud of George to have hung on to our legacy. George Nottoli, you keep doing what you're doing, because you're not leaving Belmont before me. We'll leave together and we'll right off into the sunset together.
We'll make a deal, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. George, you've done a tremendous job.
Thank you very much, John.
And I got to ask you. Thank you. And George, I got to ask you, your products, the sausage and the sandwiches, can the sauces be purchased online?
I don't ship, but our sausage is available through Lou Malnati's.
Okay.
Lou Malnati's has something called Taste of Chicago, where they have Vienna hot dogs, they got Portillo's beef, they got Eli's cheesecake, and many other things that are from Chicago. And they do have our sausage. So if people live out of state, they just go on Lou Malnati's, tasteofchicago.com, and they can order our sausage.
And I know there were you just correct me if I'm wrong before we close it off. I know you were providing to other delis sausage. Matter of fact, not to, again, the confusion, this is the original Nottoli here on Belmont Avenue, but I know the Nottoli on Harlem, the Conchaldi place, sells your sausage, correct?
Yes.
And there's other delis that you provide to also.
Yes.
Yes. So again, but if you want it exactly right and everything, 7652 Belmont is the place
to go.
The place to go. George, any closing?
You'll be back. You come once, you'll definitely come again.
100. Any closing comments, George?
Thank you for this opportunity.
Oh, this was
good luck to you. People, come by here, get a sandwich, go down the street and buy a plane ticket to California or Italy. John's great for the Italy trips. So I'm gonna have to see. Actually, my son graduates college
Okay.
in 3 years, and that's our plan is to go to Italy. So
Yeah. You know, I have to say, I order a prosciutto and a sub sandwich probably on an average once a month. So I'm going to just say you were the reason why I never made it to pros. The caloric intake, but I enjoyed it much more than play.
oh yeah, well, yep.
George, again, thank you for this. And we're going to get this out to our audience and here shortly. And I want to thank George shortly. And George, good night. And thank you so much.
Thank you very much, John. I appreciate it.
You got it.
Take care. For all you do some great things. So
Thank you.
keep going. We got to keep going, John. Look how much you reinvented yourself.
Yes. And, you know, again, it's just amazing from the days of Chicago and Hamlin, where our fathers, Anthony and Vince, were together, and to see us together. I always tell people when I'm comparing, I say, I'm not too far from the Nottoli on Belmont Avenue.
Yeah. But you know what our fathers would have said about us doing the things we do? Oh, stupido.
Stupido.
You're fine. What are you doing? What a waste of time.
Yeah, what are you guys doing?
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Good night, and thank you.
Take it easy, John.